And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Enterprise's Christopher Scott to get us going. Christopher?
Thank you, Donna. Greetings, everyone, and thanks for joining us today to learn more about the Rose Architectural Fellowship. The Rose Fellowship is a 3-year, full-time employment opportunity for designers to work at a community-based organization. My name is Christopher Scott, and I am the program director for the Rose Fellowship. Katie Swinton, who is also on the line with me, leads all of the design programs within Enterprise. She was also a member of one of the first Rose Fellowship classes and has been with the fellowship since its beginning. So let's just set the table on the goals of the call. The goal of this call is principally to make you familiar with the opportunities that are currently available for Rose Fellowships. Experience tells us that establishing the direct dialogue between candidates and hosts is seminal to clarifying the fit between the fellow and the host, and thereby creating the best conditions for success in the fellowship. So today we're going to engage in that dialogue with the incoming class of host organizations. Now, I'm certain that many of you have questions, so our aim is to leave as much time for the Q&A as possible. Still, we may not get to all your questions in this webinar, so I want you to rest assured that there will be plenty of opportunities for you to engage with us in different forums. The first date I want to draw to your attention is June 14th. That is our next webinar. While this particular webinar is focused on interacting with the host, the June 14th webinar is set up for candidates to interact with the current fellows. Additionally, regardless of where you reside in the U.S., it's likely that we either have a current fellow or an alumni nearby that we could connect you with one-on-one. Feel free to reach out to me after the webinar if that is of interest, and we'll find opportunities to pair you with a fellow in your area. The most important date to note is July 9th. That is the application deadline. So that's what's on the horizon. Any schedule changes or additional information sessions will be posted to our website or distributed through social media. So please do stay close to us through all those modes of communication in the coming weeks. Now for the agenda. I will provide a brief overview of the fellowship, after which point we will have the host organizations give short presentations. Before we get to the host, a helpful jumping off point to understanding the fellowship is through the track record of impact the program has had over time. Over the course of 17 years, the program has produced 69 fellows working across the country in urban, small town, and rural contexts. And through those experiences, the fellows have helped create over 11,000 units of housing, primarily serving low-income or otherwise vulnerable populations. Another useful lens from which to understand the fellowship is that it is uniquely both a local and a national experience. By that, I mean, as a fellow, you will be working in partnership with your host organization at the community scale level. But in addition to that, you will be a member of a larger network of other fellows and other hosts from across the country, which provides for a more expansive view of what's being tried and experimented in other places. The fellowship experience itself is made up of a triumvirate of players. First, there's the host organization. Typically, this is a nonprofit, place-based organization committed to serving low-income communities and focused on community development through developing affordable housing or creating and preserving open space. They have a vision for stretching beyond their current approach, and they see how having a staff member with design training for a 3-year period could help them advance their goals, and maybe even help expand their vision of what's possible for their organizations. Then there's the fellow. This person is a person with an accredited design degree that desires to use their design skills and knowledge for the greater good. The fellow is a full-time, at-will employee of the host organization for the 3-year fellowship period, and the fellow's role can vary depending on the host organization and the fellow's skills and interests. Lastly, the Enterprise Design Initiatives team administers the fellowship program. We select the host organizations and help them plan for the fellow. We run the fellow selection process, of which you are currently engaged, and we help orient fellows once they're chosen. During the 3 years of the fellowship, we host retreats and conferences, advise fellows and their host organizations, and provide a national platform under which they engage. We're effectively the hub of a network of fellow and hosts who all get to know each other and learn from each other's work from across the country. With those foundational blocks, the triumvirate sets off on the fellowship journey. We craft a work plan supported by an overarching vision, but inevitably the journey unpacks itself differently over the course of 3 years, and often in transformational ways for both the organization and the fellow. Just to orient you a bit on this slide, the pink states are the locations of the incoming class of fellowships. And I should note we are fortunate to have all 5 host organizations on the line. Those 5 organizations are Quest Community Development Organization, also known as Quest Communities, based in Atlanta, Georgia. Venice Community Housing, based in Los Angeles. The Fairmount Park Conservancy out of Philadelphia. Epicenter from Green River, Utah. And the Trust for Public Land, which is a fellowship with national scope, but where the fellow will be based in the St. Paul, Minnesota area. The thread that unites them all is that they are all focused on grounding their work in design excellence, and they have applied to host a fellow to help advance their work in this regard. Now on to the host presentation section of our agenda. I've asked the host to give you a background of their organizational culture and mission, to share a little bit about the context in which they work, and to share with you an example of a project or two that a potential fellow can expect to work on during the course of the fellowship. Just as a reminder, as we're going through the presentations, and if questions surface for you, feel free to submit them in the Q&A box so that we can get your questions queued up for the end of the session here. So we're going to start on the East Coast with Quest Community Development Organization and Javier Garcia, who will share more about the exciting opportunities a fellow can expect to encounter in Atlanta.
Is that my cue, Christopher?
That is your cue.
All right, perfect. I've got my stopwatch. Hopefully I'll keep it within time. Thank you for that introduction. Yes, like Christopher said, my name is Javier Garcia. I am the Property Development Manager at Quest Community Development Organization in Atlanta. Just to give you a little bit of background about Quest. Quest, we are a 16-year-old organization. We're founded in 2001, and we are an affordable housing developer as well as supportive service provider. When we began in 2001, we started with just one person in a 12-unit, our owner, our founder, in a 12-unit apartment building, and since then we have grown to be an organization of approximately 30 employees, and we manage roughly around a little under 200 units of affordable supportive housing. Our roots are in supportive service housing, meaning that we provide transitional as well as permanent supportive housing to formerly homeless single men, women, and veterans. And all of our residents have a diagnosed mental illness as well as substance addiction. But as I said, our roots are in supportive service housing, but since 2014, we've really worked to expand the type of properties in which we develop. We've grown into commercial, multifamily that isn't designated as supportive service housing, and single-family housing. But the joining thread of all of our developments have been affordability as well as social responsibility. And just to kind of give you guys just a little bit of a background about the context in which we work in Atlanta. As many of you across the country know that, all of our cities are expanding. People are coming back into the urban cores, and like many other your cities, Atlanta is rapidly growing. Over the next 20 years, there's been its expected growth of 2.5 million people within the metropolitan area, and this growth is bringing a kind of crisis of affordability into the region. Atlanta has had an 867% increase in the luxury apartment field since 2012, thus pushing the average rent for a one-bedroom unit from $878 per month to $1,328. And it's estimated that just under 50% of Atlanta households are cost-burdened, meaning that they're paying more than 30% of their income for housing. So as you can tell, the situation is dire in terms of access to affordable housing. Now, with regards to some of the projects that they'd be working on, Quest Property Development Department we're on the cusp of major growth. Over the past 3 years, we've completed approximately $7 million worth of development, but we're projecting that over the next 24 to 36 months, we have either secured funding or we're in the fundraising and pre-development stages for approximately $30 million worth of development. And these projects include the 40,000 square foot Quest Nonprofit Center for Change, 53-unit low-income housing tax credit development called Quest Commons West. We have our Holly Street development, which will be a 40-unit new construction senior facility that will house extremely low-income households, so households that are making 30% of AMI or below, as well as the redevelopment of our single-family portfolio of vacant properties that we've acquired over the last year in our Vine City neighborhood. And that's just what we kind of know about today. Now, in terms of what some of our needs would be, I think it's a given for all of you that are interested in applying for this fellowship that you already have experience and expertise in design, in construction administration, and project management. I feel like that's just a given, or you wouldn't be interested in continuing doing this type of work. But instead, I think the needs of what I know that I'm looking for is someone who's going to be an independent worker. We are a relatively small organization, and our property development office is small. I am the lone person working in the office with strategic leadership coming from our senior management. So there are a lot of different projects that are going on at one time. So it's going to be someone who needs to be able to work independently, someone who has the ability to multitask, someone who's a creative thinker, because we are looking for someone who's going to push and challenge the ways in which we currently develop affordable housing. But most importantly, I'm looking for someone who believes and is committed to the cause of affordable housing and the belief that it's imperative to create a vibrant and sustainable neighborhood and city. And that's Quest. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Javier. I will now pass the microphone to Becky Dennison to introduce you further to Venice Community Housing and their impactful work around homeless housing.
Hello, everyone. I'm Becky Dennison, the Executive Director of Venice Community Housing. We have been working in the Venice community and throughout Los Angeles' West Side since 1988. We were founded really in a true grassroots fashion by residents of Venice who foresaw gentrification coming into the beach cities and really wanted to purchase land and have community ownership and build a strong community to ensure that racial and economic diversity could continue in Venice, Mar Vista, and Del Rey. We remain very committed to those neighborhoods. A lot of developers in Los Angeles have moved to a more regional approach as neighborhoods have gotten more expensive, but we really feel like we're the only affordable housing developer in these neighborhoods, and if we don't continue to have some focus on them, we really won't see any additional affordable housing built in the neighborhood. And we also in Venice have amongst the highest concentrations of homeless residents in the city. So there's 1,000 homeless people living here with us in Venice, and we believe in the housing first model and housing as a human right, and so we're really trying to work on that issue. We have 216 units of affordable housing that we own and operate now. But it's a really great time to come to Venice Community Housing because we have the opportunity to build about 200 new units in the next 3 to 5 years. And I'll talk a little bit more about a large project on a city-owned site when we get there. We can switch slides real quick. So I'll just say that a couple other things, that beyond owning and operating affordable housing, which we do have our own in-house property management and resident services teams, and we take a really integrated approach to those efforts. But we also do have youth empowerment programs, including after-school programs in a couple of our buildings and a local elementary school, and then a long-standing youth build program. And we really try to incorporate youth build students into our development processes. As part of their program is to get construction training and certifications and to work on affordable housing projects. And so one of our projects coming up on our existing office space will be really integrated with the youth build program, because we'd like to build somewhere between 30 and 60 units of housing, as well as have a permanent home for the youth build program here. And we're really hoping that the fellow that works with us will be able to engage youth in the design aspects and really make it a youth-led and youth, have some youth ownership in the final product. The other things, as Javier said, are the standard pieces of what you're probably interested in doing. I will say that community engagement is really key for this position, as Venice has drastically changed over the last 5 to 7 years with the influx of Google and Snapchat and the tech community. And so we have a lot of work to do in getting to know new stakeholders and building broader support for affordable housing in a neighborhood that had long welcomed affordable housing development, and now it's a much more contentious issue. So really thinking about how to use design and community engagement and to create ownership in the projects we're working on will be critically important. The other thing that's exciting about coming to Los Angeles right now is we do have very supportive local electeds on the west side, and we also just passed 2 ballot initiatives that's going to greatly increase the amount of funding for permanent supportive housing. And so both of our projects that are moving forward now will primarily serve, not exclusively, but primarily serve homeless individuals and families. So I'll just talk then about the biggest project that we're working on, which is on a city-owned parking lot. And last year, the city recommitted use of its own land to address the housing and homeless crisis in Los Angeles. So we have about a 2.5-acre site, which is pretty unheard of on the west side of Los Angeles. Most of our sites are about a half an acre at most. And so we have the opportunity, we think, to do about 150 units of affordable housing, including some low-income artist spaces, really kind of looking at the history of Venice and trying to serve multiple needs, but primarily permanent supportive housing. And then the key piece here is really going to be, this is a piece of public land, and so how can it be continued to be seen as valuable to the broader community, and that'll be partially just through the design and the purpose of providing housing for folks and hopefully moving some homeless folks off of our streets, but also through some social enterprise, through open and green space, through community arts, and those things are all in development now and will be brand new pieces of work for Venice Community Housing. We've done mixed-use properties before, but not nearly at this scale and not nearly at this level of multiple uses. So it'll be a great time to be helping us think through that. And again, really creating a project that people can feel proud of, both folks that live there and people who live around the community. So that's Venice Community Housing.
So Epicenter is our rural fellowship of this cohort. I want to say thank you to Jack Farnash for sharing his unique culture of his organization and his beautiful landscape with us. Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, everybody. So yeah, I guess we're the designated rural one, and I'll talk a little bit more about what it means to live and work here. So our mission statement here at Epicenter is to accentuate Green River's rural pride and pioneering spirit. Epicenter provides housing and business resources and promotes the arts. We're a multidisciplinary team of young professionals. We engage with, collaborate with, and learn from our community. We're currently a staff of 8. 4 employees hold professional degrees in architecture, 1 in graphic design, 2 in sociology, And we regularly host a visiting artist or designer, and they come from varied backgrounds. So looking at Green River from afar, Green River has a population of just 952. And we're located in southeast Utah on the namesake river. So it's not the Park City version of Utah. It's not the Salt Lake City version of Utah, or even the St. George version of Utah where Zion is. It's more, as the slide shows here on the right, this rugged, dusty area of the southeast Utah. So we're on the river itself, also on I-70 and a transcontinental railroad, but the nearest town of consequence is 60 miles either to the north or south, or if you're going east or west on the interstate, it's 100 miles to the next town. So Green River is often described as isolated, but paradoxically, we're also very well connected with all those connections. Since 2009, as a nonprofit community development organization in a small town, we've offered unduplicated services and opportunities. It really is the case there that if we're not doing it, it doesn't get done. The work here is visible. We can easily see and measure the impact of the work, just as a community can easily observe and participate alongside of us and critique us. So you'll know your neighbors, the clients, the city council members by name. You'll see them in the grocery store. You'll know the school-age kids and the waitresses. You'll get to know everyone in town as you live here, buying groceries, getting your mail from the post office. We don't have mail delivery, so everyone has to go to the post office every day. Attending the high school basketball games, or just celebrating 4th of July, or Melon Days is our big community event in September. The community potlucks there are pretty fun. So our goal within housing is to eliminate substandard housing in Green River, and the Rose Fellow Epicenter will address affordable housing and community development in a holistic manner through a multi-pronged approach. The fellow will evaluate existing programs for opportunities for improvement, pursue the development of a new multifamily housing complex of 10 to 12 units, refine the design of the Frontier House, that's a new single-family housing prototype that we're just completing, work to connect residents to home ownership and rental opportunities and remove housing barriers, and implement community development initiatives within our new downtown revitalization plan. So you'll help both define but also refine public problem statements, research best practices, do surveys door-to-door, design better systems, seek resources for implementation and construction, and really just affect change for real people living in a real place. For what we're looking for in a fellow, I'll echo what Javier said about the qualifications and needs, and I would add to that someone that specifically wants to live in a rural place. And that's important I don't want to overstress how rural we are, but this is a very rural place. And it's a different version in the American West of rural. It's not like it is on the coast. There's not a town or a building every so often that you can always see. It's actually just literally nothing in between towns except for beautiful landscapes and vistas. But like I said, we're also highly connected, and our network in Utah is well established. It always could use more, but we partner regularly with the University of Utah College of Architecture and their renowned Design Build Bluff program, also with the Utah Housing Coalition, where I'm a board member and a rural committee chair, and other rural community development and affordable housing nonprofits. And then also our work is not just within housing, although that would be the main focus of the fellow. We also have arts and culture programming and economic development, which makes our organization have many tentacles in many aspects, not just statewide, but even nationally and globally. So for the example project, I mentioned the Frontier House. So that's us there building it and a kind of exploded axon of some highlights that we were trying to show through the work. So we have over half of our town lives in a trailer, in a mobile home. And we've done surveys door to figure out what the conditions are and what they're paying. So what we built in late 2016 was a 708 square foot stick-built home designed specifically for Green River and purposefully to address systemic change regarding affordable housing in rural Utah. We really see it as a case study to test affordable, quality-made, and high-performance housing as an alternative to mobile homes. So the fellow will work to refine this project, improve its design and performance, monitor its durability and efficiency, and create informational publications specific to different interested parties. So someone coming to the office that wants to build a home is different information than a local contractor or elected official or a funder or just external observers, for example. We really can see that this project is a kind of 8.5-year culmination of our work here in Green River, and that it's a case study that even if you don't get, the point might not be to replicate that exact plan of a house, but it can be to engage this sort of intensive research process and asking questions and refining the problem statement. So we seek to build our capacity through the fellow. We want to identify barriers, create workarounds, which we've been good at doing, and secure pathways for local residents to find affordable and durable housing that fits their needs and works to build familial wealth and equity so that households are better able to improve their quality of life. That's it for me.
So the Trust for Public Land is represented by a strong team from several cities, including St. Paul, Minnesota, Cleveland, and nationally from the New York City office. I'd like to hand the mic to Nettie Compton to sort of let us know what's going on in your unique fellowship.
Great. Hey, everybody. This is Nettie. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, awesome. So thanks all for the opportunity. So you're probably wondering to yourself, what is the Trust for Public Land? And this doesn't sound like a housing organization, and you'd be right. So we're looking for kind of an interesting take on a fellowship that's going to be a little bit different than some of the other ones. So we're the Trust for Public Land. We're a 45-year-old organization. And as you can see in the bottom corner there, our mission is to create parks and protect land for people. But the second half of that sentence, I think, is really where there's the strong tie in what we seek to do as well as what Enterprise seeks to do, and that's to ensure healthy, livable communities for generations to come. And within our work in cities, we really are focused in particular on the idea that everybody within urban America deserves to live within a 10-minute walk of a great park. And so we're really involved and interested in how do we invest in infrastructure, how do we catalyze change in communities towards that goal. If you want to go to the next slide. So we do that work in a lot of different ways, from helping to acquire land and property to working with communities to actually build the parks across all of these different communities throughout America. And as we're working in these places, as some of the other presenters have already mentioned, investments in communities can also sometimes come with unintended consequences in terms of displacement. And it's something that we're aware of as an organization, and we want to explore what role can a non-housing organization like the Trust for Public Land play in positive outcomes and in regards to building out communities and all of the features that come along with it, with an eye to avoiding those unintended consequences. And so we've constructed this fellowship, if you go to the next slide, that we're looking for a fellow who's going to help us explore these ideas, these tensions. And the reason that you've got a couple different presenters here is that we're looking for this fellowship to work with us in terms of national research and taking advantage of that network of fellows around the country connected to affordable housing organizations around the country to really kind of explore what types of roles, what are the best practices in this realm, but also that you're going to be working directly with some of our teams on the ground with projects that are working with or adjacent to and incorporating with affordable housing communities in the parks work that we do. So you're actually going to be taking all of that research and idea and applying it to practice in some specific cities. So working as a project manager alongside some of our team. And with that, I'll pass it along to Jenna Fletcher, who will talk a little bit about one of those projects.
Yeah, thank you. This is Jenna Fletcher. I'm with the Trust for Public Land, housed in our St. Paul, Minnesota office. And our office is about 14 people big, so it's a nice, robust office of one of almost 30 across the country that the Trust for Public Land has. And the fellow, as Nettie may have alluded to, will be hosted and reside in the St. Paul office. And let me tell you a little bit about an example project. We are excited at the Trust for Public Land to be creating a new public park. It's actually a fairly large park. It's about 5 acres. And it's in a light rail corridor, the Green Line corridor, which opened just a couple years ago. It's also adjacent to 4 affordable housing properties. They are communal properties, one very large high-rise property. And it's an area that we know will develop because right now it's a sea of parking lots. It's called the Midway area. It's sort of midway between the downtowns. And it's an area in transition from a formerly more kind of industrial retail area that will be seeing more housing as part of transit-oriented development. The Trust for Public Land did purchase 3 parcels of land. You see a picture here, 3 parcels that combined will form this new park. And we did that purchasing before land values rose because there are 2 transit stations just 2 blocks each side of this park. And we purchased that land on behalf of the City of St. Paul. So now it is now owned by the City of St. Paul. And we've been undergoing over the last 2 years, we're about 3/4 of the way done, really deep early community engagement. And we have grant funding to do that. But there is going to be very soon a handoff of what we've learned about from community engagement to the City of St. Paul. And a landscape architect on staff there will do the park design. But that handoff of our learnings from our deep community engagement will really be important. From our engagement, we've learned about neighborhood values and the preferred park design features from a very diverse community here. We have an East African immigrant community, we have an African American community, we have South Asian community, and we have Caucasian communities here. So that's why we felt strongly about really creative community engagement. So our hope is that this engagement will then be transitioned into the design of the park that truly serves the diverse residents in the 4 nearby affordable housing properties and other residents. And also there's quite a bit of visitors who come to this area for social services. So the Rose Fellow would be assisting with our leadership, the city's landscape architect, in effectively interpreting and embedding the community values and preferences into the park design. So serving as the Trust for Public Lands design consultant in shaping the design, working on the iteration, and being involved in the city and Trust for Public Land community engagement, formal community engagement process. We really see this park as a cross-cultural catalyst for the whole area, the neighborhood. And we also would like the Rose Fellow to think about and examine the displacement issue, as Nettie just described, specifically in this particular area of the city because of the proximity to light rail, because of the development that we know is coming. I think it's a very important topic. That's it for me.
Great, thank you. And hello, everybody. My name is Matt Schmidt. I am Jenna's counterpart here in our Ohio office, which is located in Cleveland. There's quite a few parallels between the work that we're undertaking in Minnesota and Ohio right now. And through this fellowship, a focus of our work here in Cleveland will be centered around the community engagement design process and development of a series of park and connectivity improvements within a particular public housing community here in Cleveland, Lakeview Terrace. Some key aspects of this will be really thinking about how we unite our placemaking, healthy community principles, and climate-smart decision-making tools as key elements of creating plans and meaningful change. The important part here is that we're really thinking about, want to make sure that these changes are directed by and as beneficial as they can be to the Lakeview Terrace residents. really with a focus on multi-generational needs and spaces throughout the plan. As it develops, one of the things that we really need to keep in mind is that the neighborhoods surrounding the sites are it's really changing at an extremely rapid rate and seeing some of the city's greatest growth. And our role in this is not only to ensure that between ourselves and our partners, we're bringing all the right people to the table to really create physical and social change for the residents, but to ensure that Lakeview Terrace residents are make sure that they feel at home in the place that they live, in the neighborhood that they live, that they're reunited with the neighborhood and its many amenities that they've been cut off from, both physically and socially over many years of change, and that we're creating a number of new linkages with not only the new development that's surrounding them, but a series of trail networks and other large-scale green space initiatives that will continue to, once again, not only draw new visitors and residents and development to the neighborhood that surrounds it, but to make sure that we're linking all of this together in the most meaningful way possible. So we're very much looking forward to continuing to participate in this process and the kind of helping define the cross-collaborations between our work across the country and best practices moving forward.
All righty. I was really just trying to build the suspense. All right. So my name is Jamie Gaudier. I'm Senior Director of Public Partnerships at the Fairmount Park Conservancy. A little about us. We're sort of the nonprofit champion for the park system. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Philadelphia, we have the largest and highly lauded urban park system in the country. It's about 10,200 acres if you include Fairmount Park proper and the more than 100 neighborhood parks across the city. And so the Conservancy is a champion for the full park system and the parks all across, in neighborhoods all across the city. And so what that means, that plays out in several ways for us. So we raise quite a lot of revenue for the park system. And we also have a long-standing public-private partnership with our city Department of Parks and Recreation. And so as a nonprofit partner, we're able to bring in millions of dollars to support the park system and improvements to the system. We also carry out quite a lot of capital projects on our own. We're able, as a nonprofit, to carry out projects pretty efficiently and also able to be innovative and to get the support to be sometimes more innovative than the city is allowed to be as the public partner. We do a lot to engage people, to educate people about the park and engage them in the park. That plays out in some really fun ways. So one thing we do, for example, is a temporary public space installation called the Oval that's right downtown in front of the Art Museum. So for several months in the summer, the Oval is open and it's a place where people come, from all over the city and even from outside of the city to play games and to hang out. And so it's fun to have that space activated even for a couple months. Another fun example of that is something we do called Parks on Tap, which is sort of like a mobile beer garden that goes around to different parks every week. And then we also support the community's capacity to take care of their neighborhood parks. So we provide support and capacity building services to about 115 volunteer park groups in neighborhoods throughout the city. So those are volunteers that come together to organize cleanups, to work with us in the city on routine maintenance for the parks, to advocate for resources for their neighborhood parks. So they're really critical partners on the ground in terms of just basic stewardship of the park and in terms of getting any projects done. We were very excited to have been chosen to get a Rose Fellowship this time around. We've never had, I'm pretty new to the Conservancy, but to my knowledge, we've never had a full-time designer on staff. So mostly we're contracting out for those services. And we do a lot of great work even with using outside consultants. And we, as I described, we have pretty great and close relationships with the community. But I think we're somewhat like the Trust for Public Land in that we want to have that design competency even closer to our community engagement effort. And so we're really looking forward to having this person on staff so that our community engagement approach as it relates to parks is always sort of fused with design. And we think we can take our work to an even greater level to the extent that we're able to do that. And so specifically, when we bring on the Rose Fellow, that person will be our lead designer for the park projects that we're working on. That person will help us to build community capacity around design so that they're able to envision their park spaces differently. And hopefully over time, that person will help us to build out our internal infrastructure so that we have design capacity on staff for the long haul. In terms of typical projects, so we have some exciting projects going on right now. One is a major national initiative, and of which we're sort of the local partner or the lead agency in Philadelphia. It's called Reimagining the Civic Commons. It's funded by the Knight Foundation, and what Knight is trying to support is the use of or the creation of public spaces that bring people together from different socioeconomic backgrounds, that foster community connections, and that sort of improve quality of life within communities. And so we are the lead partner in Philadelphia. Our project includes 5 public spaces, and they're all major public space projects, but with some differences. So one is the renovation of a library, one is a rail park. All of that, we're not the lead project partner on every project. One of the projects is ours. It's called Centennial Commons, and it's in West Parkside. It's a project that's aimed at bringing the Parkside community into the park more and creating welcoming spaces for them inside a park that where it's felt that the community hasn't ever really felt that it was theirs. It's more of a regional destination. With the other projects where we're not sort of the project lead, we're providing some capital dollars, and then we're also bringing the partners together around the Civic Commons philosophy of community engagement towards these broader aims. Another thing that's really, really exciting is that Philadelphia is on the cusp of a major public works project called Rebuild. And so it comes as a result of a new tax on sugary beverages that was passed last year, and we'll be providing upwards of $500 million for the improvements, for capital improvements to parks, recreation centers, and libraries throughout the city. And so beyond, the Conservancy already does really wonderful work, has done dozens of capital projects, has supported community capacity across the city, but this is Rebuild is taking Philadelphia's public space commitment to a whole new level, and we expect to play a major role in that. So certainly we'll be playing a major role with civic engagements because the park friends groups that we support are key to engaging the community around any park projects that will happen. But I also expect that we will get we will be leading a number of capital projects through in the Rebuild Initiative. And so the Rose Fellow would be coming on to help us with our existing portfolio, but also would be playing a major role in the community engagement that we'll be supporting through Rebuild and through the capital projects that we hope to lead as well. And then just lastly, we're an organization of, I believe there are 26 of us right now. To the extent that we are able to get some significant work through Rebuild, that could change pretty quickly. And so we could be bringing quite a few people on. And that's it.
Great. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 5 amazing host organizations and a great sense of the challenge and possibility ahead. Before we open it up for questions, I wanted to say that Katie Swinson also is on the line with us and will be helping us field questions here. Katie, did you want to say a word before we break into questions?
Absolutely. Hi and welcome all. So great to hear all 5 of you on the phone and sort of describing these opportunities, and we're looking forward to questions from applicants or potential applicants. I've been with the Rose Fellowship now since about 2001. In fact, I even was sort of eyeing it in 2000, the first year that it came out, and I applied and became a fellow from 2001 to 2004, and over the last 10 years I've had the privilege of shepherding the program for Enterprise. So happy to be part of the questions if people have them, and really excited for this exciting batch of fellowships. Thanks, Christopher.
Thank you, Katie. Nice to have you. So I'd like to open up for questions at this point. Donna, will you give us instructions for how this is going to work?
Absolutely. If you look down to the lower right-hand side of your screen, if you haven't found it yet, there is the Q&A panel. It opens up if you've accidentally shut it. And we encourage you to type your questions right into there and address them to all panelists so we all see them. And then I'll be reading the questions out loud so our panelists can jump in and answer. So while we're waiting for additional questions to come in, let's tackle the ones that have already arrived. And our first question comes from Jesse, who'd like to know, do students receive some sort of vocational training credits or college credits for their participation?
I'm assuming that was for Venice Youth Build students. And Youth Build students primarily come in without a high school diploma. So the focus is on them leaving with a high school diploma, not a GED. Pre-apprentice construction training certification, and they also are co-enrolled in AmeriCorps and complete their community service hours, so they hopefully leave with their college stipend scholarship as well.
Okay. Great, thank you. The next question is from Leslie, who says, each location has its own set of opportunities. It seems that the fellows wear many different hats. My question is, which hat is worn the most? I understand designer and project manager will be part of the title. Can anyone elaborate on this, please?
Any of the hosts have a view yet? If not, I think Enterprise provide a sort of historic view of sort of what we've seen over the years, but
and hosts, don't forget to unmute your line if you want to speak.
Hello?
Yeah, hello, this is Jamie, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I think for us it could be both. It could go both ways. So I think, and some of this is new. We've never had this this type of person on staff before. But I think that that person will be a lead designer in some instances, And in some instances, say if we have an influx of projects through Rebuild, for example, we may have to still bring in outside design assistance, and that person may be managing that process and just making sure that it has integrity from a civic engagement perspective.
Yeah, and this is Javier, and I mean, I kind of just echo sort of what Jamie said. I think there are certain expectations. I think that I know as for Quest that we've highlighted within our presentation. But I think as an organization, that's on the ground, that's doing this work in this neighborhood on a daily basis, different things come up, and so I know one of the reasons why I said someone who can sort of multitask and be flexible is that there are going to be other responsibilities that we can't foresee right now that are going to be outside of just the basic description of being just a project manager or designer.
Okay, great, thanks. Our next question is also from Leslie, and she'd like to know, does each fellowship host location use its own design programs, or does the Rose Fellowship team use a set of base programs throughout each location?
That's probably a question best for Enterprise. So we provide Enterprise has a partnership with Autodesk. So we provide all the fellows with the Autodesk suite of design products. And we tend to find that is sufficient for the level of work that you will be doing in this sort of context. For any design programs above and beyond that, we will provide the host organizations with ways to get access to nonprofit discounts to those programs. But again, we find that the Autodesk suite pretty well suffices for this role.
Christopher, any follow-up on that?
No. Did you hear me walk through the answer? Hello?
No, I don't think we did.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I was speaking the whole time. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay. So sorry. What I was saying is that Enterprise has a partnership with the Autodesk Foundation, and we provide the Autodesk suite of design programs for fellows for free. So we'll ensure that the host organizations have those design programs by the time fellows start. Any sort of design programs above and beyond that, we will help the host organizations get access to discounts that they can purchase those for the fellows, but we tend to find that the Autodesk suite is more than sufficient for a role of this sort.
Terrific, thank you. Sorry about making you repeat that. Yeah. Next question is from Ray, who'd like to know, in what way, if any, will a fellow differ from a typical employee at your organization?
This is Nettie. I guess I could speak to that maybe from the perspective of, at least for our fellowship. So we're looking for a fellow to, in some ways, be kind of a connector of various people and activities around a particular topic. This idea of the role of investing in infrastructure like parks. How can we shape that process to be sensitive to the risks of displacement, empower a community, and so that connective role kind of spans how we typically structure our positions. That might be, geographically based or nationally based. So that role is sort of, it's different in a way because it has a sort of very focused area, and this idea that you're going to be working with different staff across different places.
I think for Venice Community Housing, I don't know that we have a typical employee, and the fellow would certainly be fully integrated into our full team, so there wouldn't be any differences there. I will say we don't have any architects or designers on staff and never have, so that will be really great for VCH and a much more informed, engaged liaison with the architects we're working with now. I also think we've been really true to community engagement for a long time, but we're just building a more dedicated and concrete staff team. So you'll be joining a small team that will be slightly different from some of our typical staff roles.
Okay, moving on to our next question, also from Ray. Most of the organizations are very place-based. How important is it to your organization for the applicant to have existing relationships in your community?
Well, for Epicenter and Utah, we certainly don't expect that, and so I guess it's not important to have those connections. And I think actually having the fresh pair of eyes on the community and on our programming is what we're looking for.
Hi, this is Jamie in Philly. I don't think that we're looking for existing connections. We have really strong community partnerships and relationships that we can, transfer to the Rhodes Fellow. I think we're looking for design competence. We're looking for someone who really wants to be in the community and wants to be in community development, and somebody who has an aptitude for relationship building and working with people.
This is Jenna Fletcher in the St. Paul office. I would completely concur with what Jamie described. We and the prior speaker, we want somebody with a fresh set of eyes, and we will utilize our existing relationships. I don't think it has to be somebody that knows our geography.
This is Becky from Venice. I agree. I'll say, connections to the community or the Los Angeles region are always helpful. It's a complex area, but absolutely not necessary. And our board staff, longtime supporters, are very Venice-based and have long history in the community. So this is could absolutely be somebody who's building those relationships new and building upon the local presence we have.
Great. We are at the top of the hour. We're going to squeeze one last question in really very quickly, and this is for Venice Community Housing. The question is, on the first-year work plan, you describe one of the fellows' roles as design support. What does design support mean to you, and how do you see the fellow interacting with the Eric Owens, Moss, and Brooks Scarpa?
Well, that's a good question. I think it's a little bit what I said about sort of the piece around what wouldn't be typical for Venice Community Housing. I will say that both Eric Owen Moss and Angie Brooks are really highly engaged with VCH and really committed to community engagement, but don't necessarily have the capacity to do true design workshops to help young people or low-income residents or other residents to think about what architects and designers need to know from them. So I feel like there's a lot of the pre-work and then the engagement on a professional level with the architects in translating that into their design. And I know both of them are also aware of this fellowship and very open to incorporating the fellow more deeply into their work too, so it can be kind of a shared process.
Great, thank you. So as I mentioned, we are up at the top of the hour. I see we've got some questions that have not yet been answered. Just want you to know that we've got your questions and we've got your email, so we can get back to you, so don't panic. With that, I am going to turn this back over to Christopher to see if you have any wrap-up words for us.
Oh, thank you, Donna. And yeah, I just want to say thanks to all of you, both presenters and the audience, for a packed hour of really good information. For the prospective fellows specifically, I hope you feel excited about one or more of these opportunities and that you're feeling encouraged to apply. But please feel free to reach out to me with any more of your questions. We'll be sure to get them answered if we didn't get to them today. And then finally, I just want to say thank you to the 5 organizations for being host to a fantastic new class of Rose Fellowships. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks. This concludes today's webinar. Thank you very much. Goodbye.